welcome to another episode of M&H Breakfast Banter. This, believe it or not, is our fourth attempt to start this pod. But never mind. M&H Consultants consists of Anita here, I'm the M part, Anita Menon, and I'm Ron Howard, that's the H. We have today a very special guest. We normally have guests who have one business or work in one industry, but I think it would be fair to call this guest a serial entrepreneur.
I think yes.
If you can introduce him, then I will ask you the all-important question.
Yes. So today we have Karan Trehan in our studio, and thank you, Karan, for accepting to come to our podcast.
Thank you so much. Truly honored to be here. Thank you both.
The all-important question before we start
Yes.
talking to you is, what's for breakfast, Anita?
Yes. So Karan, like we just talked about how our podcast is called Breakfast Banter. There is no pod without breakfast over here.
Okay.
So this we've ordered on UApp, and UApp, thank you for being our sponsor. We're very grateful. The breakfast is from Caribou. It's very popular, right? Everybody knows Caribou.
Love it.
And I have hot chocolate for a change.
And of course, I have my English breakfast tea.
And cappuccino for me.
And a lot of different sandwiches, which we are going to try during the pod or after, maybe. I don't know. So Karan here is an entrepreneur. He's an investor in multiple businesses, and he's a mentor to a lot of startups here in Bahrain. And I happened to meet Karan at something called the Gladiator Mastery Program.
That's right.
That I attended sometime early this year. And it was a 2-day workshop at the Four Seasons, and which I truly and immensely enjoyed and gained from. And since then, Karan and I, we've been in touch on and off about various things, and I'm very happy that we are here today to talk about your business, which is one of the businesses that you co-founded with your wife, is Baby Essentials, right?
Yep.
And apart from that, we'll also be talking about how businesses can increase their sales in a down market situation. So, Karan, let's begin.
Absolutely. Super excited. Thanks again for having me. And what a great opportunity to discuss certain things, especially with business in a down market.
Yes, and I think a lot of people will really be interested to understand how to do that, because it's a tricky situation, and it has been for the past 2-3 years. But before we get into the thick of things, a little bit about yourself.
Sure. So I've been in Bahrain since 2009 and love it. This is home for me. And, it's such a wonderful multicultural country. Nationalities coming together. Business is easy to set up compared to a lot of other countries. It wasn't that easy 10, 15 years ago.
Yeah.
And there's a lot of opportunity. With that comes more people into Bahrain. And so as you can see, there's a lot more traffic on the roads. But so I've been here. I've got family, 3 kids, businesses here. And it's been just really, really wonderful. Setting up business. It's not been the easiest. That's for sure. But I think that's like with any country, isn't it? So that's a little bit about myself. And
were you always in business, or did you start businesses after you came to Bahrain?
So I started businesses after I came to Bahrain. So
Okay.
this was in 2012. So just to rewind a little bit, I was born and raised in London, and then I moved to North Wales as a young kid. Then went and studied law at university.
Okay.
So I was there in Nottingham. And then after that, I went to work in the city in London. And so I did about 3.5 years in London. And I helped set up a recruitment division, a legal recruitment division for one of the largest recruitment firms in London at the time.
Okay.
And this was sort of 2006, 2007 time.
Wow.
And I was there. We really did great. We built up an amazing business. And in 2008, the financial crisis hit.
Yes. Yeah.
And I saw a lot of people leave, and it was tough. And then by 2009, we were still doing okay, because legal, you always need lawyers, right?
Yes.
Companies will always need lawyers. In a good market, they need corporate and banking lawyers. In a down market, it's litigators. So we found a little niche in hiring litigators for companies. So 2009 came around, and I got an opportunity to work in Bahrain and set up the legal division for a company here for the whole region. And I gave it probably 30 seconds thought, and I said, gotta go for it. Why not? Nothing to lose. I was young. I was 24 years old at the time.
Oh, wow.
And had no strings attached, no ties. And so I took that leap.
Fast forward to 2022, and you're an entrepreneur and own several companies, I understand. How do you compartmentalize those so that you give the full and enough time to each of them?
It's a good question. It's something I learned probably the hard way. I tried to do everything myself, and I think that's one thing an entrepreneur will always do, because you always think, I can do things myself. I can do it faster. I can do it quicker. I can do it cheaper. But where I think I really sort of learned from was delegation. And I saw once you could delegate, you could find a team, train a team, delegate, and then keep training to make sure that the team doesn't go stale. That was the only way I could do it. Otherwise, you would just run yourself into the ground.
Yeah.
Honestly.
And how many businesses do you have here? I know that you have Baby Essentials. Apart from that, what all do you have?
So we've got Baby Essentials, and then in that company is broken down into 3 segments. One is the retail side, one is the online side, which is almost a whole business in itself, and same with distribution. So we have a distribution business that we sell products to throughout the Middle East. On top of that, we have a recruitment company called Bespoke Professionals, and Gladiator Mastery, which is what I'm doing.
Which is a franchise, right?
Which is a franchise, that's right.
Okay.
For Bahrain and Saudi Arabia.
Excellent. So next question is, obviously, since we're talking about the market conditions, how are the businesses doing?
Businesses are, this year, up to this year was okay. We went through COVID. We just buried down the hatches. We worked hard to get through that period. It was a very tough period. Online was the one that helped save the baby business, and distribution was also okay. This year has been a lot tougher than we anticipated, and I think the introduction of VAT, the costs have gone up, inflation. There has been a bit more saturation in the market as well. There's been price cutting. So there's been little bits where it's been tougher. It just means you just have to adapt, and you find different ways to try and adapt. But I'm hoping that by sort of 2023, things will start picking up again.
You would expect that the money coming in from the higher oil price would help, wouldn't it?
Yeah.
Because the cash flows that survived 2021 are affecting 2022 now, aren't they? With the higher inflation, cost-cutting people, not having so much money. But the bright light is the oil price, isn't it?
Yeah.
That the government can start investing in new projects.
That's right.
And in fact, Saudi Arabia is beginning to invest more, isn't it?
Yes.
From the
Saudi Arabia
sovereign
is
funds.
absolutely buzzing over Saudi Arabia. It's boom time, and Saudi's doing great. Dubai is also doing great at the minute. I think Bahrain will be there. It will be there. It just takes a little bit of time to adjust, and I'm starting to see, shoots of green light. Hopefully coming the way. So I think by 2023 things will start, picking up, and projects, as you mentioned, will start happening.
Sounds optimistic. Yeah.
Hopefully.
Yes.
I think one can only stay optimistic, really, no matter how sometimes tough it can seem.
I think entrepreneurs are an optimistic breed.
Yeah, I guess so. Sometimes to a downfall as well, but I agree. I agree.
Is it a good time or a bad time to start a business when there's a recession?
So that's a really good question. I always say it's a good time to start a business. And here are my reasons for it. If you look throughout history, the 1973 to 1975 oil crisis, Bill Gates started Microsoft, right? If you look at 2001, there was a company called Chimp Mail that started came up.
MailChimp.
MailChimp.
Yeah.
They started in 2001, and they provided a cheaper solution for email services.
Distribution, yes.
Exactly. 2008, you had Netflix, Uber that got set up. And a lot of the big companies that we see today were set up in recessions. A couple of things. One is talent is cheaper generally. There's more talent out there. So it becomes easier to recruit the right people. And it comes down to having like a unique selling point, because in times of recessions, it gives time to really see what people are spending their money on, where habits are going to. And so I think it's a really good time if one just takes a bit of time to look at the market, see what spending habits are there, try and identify a unique selling point, and then pivot into that, hire the right team or go in with the right people and to
So any time is a good time.
I think recession particularly is, I guess.
Recession is a good time. And I think over a boom time, sometimes, we don't know when we're in a boom time. And sometimes you also don't know really when you're in a recession time. It's only, when you look back at time over a year or 2 years. But in a boom time, that's probably a really good time in theory to save, because assets are going to go down in a recession and distressed. So you can pick up bargains. If you're looking to do whatever type of work it is, you may be able to find hotels cheaper. You may be able to find apartments if that's what you're going to do, flipping. Businesses as well will be cheaper in recession. So boom time is a good time to save money if you can. And also, it's also harder to find the right talent at cheaper prices in a boom time.
And I think you mentioned all the disruptive businesses that took off during a recession, isn't it?
Yeah.
All the Netflix, Uber, all the names, these were disruptive at their own time when they came in. So recession is actually when people start thinking creatively to do better.
That's it.
Yeah.
It's where innovation takes place.
Yes.
But
Absolutely.
internally, you'd be looking to reduce discretionary costs, wouldn't you?
Of course. Yeah. So so there's that fine balance.
Yeah.
And in a recession, it's cutting off the fat in simple terms, knowing that where a business is having waste, and try and really cut down on that. Sometimes it's not the easiest thing to do because you've entered into agreements. It could be lease agreements, contractual agreements, service provider agreements, staffing as well. But I always say this: the vehicle must always survive if you can, every single day. If your vehicle or your ship can stay afloat through the bad times, then you'll know you'll make it out in a boom time.
Yes.
Your input costs must be increasing with inflation.
Yes.
Are you able to pass that on to the customer?
We started to actually, what's the word? We started to absorb a lot of the costs in the first 3 months of this year, because when VAT went up from 5 to 10%, we started to absorb. Then it became really, really difficult to do that, and then we had to pass it down to the consumer. Which, you know what, I always think of myself as a consumer. This is the thing. So I hate having to charge more, when I always think of myself as being charging or paying for that price. But we had no choice. But yeah, shipping costs went up, and that went up by 65% in a lot of cases. So we had shipping costs go up. That was by sea, by air freight, by road. Then we had, there's customs for bringing in stocks or inventory, and then VAT is also at 10%. But then all other types of costs did go up as well. So, were revenues increasing by the same amount? No.
I hope you were able to put pressure on some of your suppliers.
Yes.
To reduce their prices.
So you know what? We did. But also there's also an element of there's only so much they can also absorb as well. And I look at it both ways. There is a part of where if you're a distributor or a supplier, they have certain costs. They can't go below that.
Yeah.
And I always believe if you can take care of them as well and absorb and work with them in some capacity, then the long road could be good.
Yes.
So all we did was we tried to, with certain partners, we tried to just restructure certain things of how it could be done. And we tried to get a little bit more creative together.
Makes you more efficient, doesn't it?
It does. 100%. And it's the ones who don't adapt to these situations
don't
are the
survive.
ones. Yeah.
Are you the price leader when it comes to baby products here?
I think so. We don't sell on price, to be honest.
Oh, right. Sorry. Yeah. Because I'm an accountant. So
Okay.
So I was thinking about price and cost, but I guess you'd be talking about quality, won't you?
Yeah, we talk. It's about quality. It's what that product can do for that mother. How much time can it save? So, for example, if we have a great video monitor, as an example, that can pick up all the sounds and everything from the baby. We even have monitors that can control, that knows what the heart rate is of the baby, if the baby is able to breathe, and things like that. So technology has come into play. So customers could pay a lot more for a video monitor that has all these extras, but it gives the comfort for mum and dad sleeping at night. You know, so this is what we try and bring products that really add value to both babies and mums and dads' lives.
Actually, that's what a lot of brands do during tough times. They value stack.
Yes.
I mean, you have unique products. That's the great thing, but not all businesses have unique products and services. They may have very commonplace, products and services, but then how do they value stack? They value stack via service levels. They value stack via giving incentives to customers and things like that,
True.
So that's the only way to tide through something which is a phase like a recession,
I fully agree. And I think it's also about, at the end of the day, a lot of businesses provide a lot of similar products, a lot of similar services.
Yeah.
How do you stand out? And all I think a business has to do is always think of the customer first. If you can show the value for the customer, it doesn't matter what product it is, if you can show how it could save them time, save them money, how it will make them feel on emotion, it's a recipe for success.
Yes.
And I think a lot of times companies don't do that. We get lazy, right? There's a laziness. We're all selling the same water, and we don't maybe talk about, so we just say this is what it is. So we just say it's the price game. I'm 50 fills cheaper than
the
right?
other one.
But they don't actually say, well, this will help your health. This will be good for you. You'll feel more hydrated, which means you can work better. And so they don't go into the depths of their product, which they can do. Yeah. So that's where we're coming to in terms of how to increase sales in a down market.
Right.
When you began here, was there any help for you for the startups from the governments or incubators or things like that?
No.
But
Quite
things
honestly,
have changed.
Things have changed. There wasn't at the time. It was you were on your own, and since then things have become much easier. And I think you've seen that as an explosion in a lot of businesses.
Yes.
I've sort of seen in the last 3-4 years, it's been a huge explosion,
boom.
Right?
Yes.
I think even from dental practices have gone from 10, 15, 20 to over 300-400 now.
Yes, even derma and dental are like sprouting everywhere.
Right.
And coffee shops and burger joints.
Yes. So I think the scene now, the startup scene, is good. There are incubators here. There are government funds like Tamkeen and other projects that do help entrepreneurs and businesses. But it comes down to this as well. Just because it's easier to set up a business doesn't mean you should always set up a business.
Yeah. Yes. Like that brings me to the next question now, because the market is still sluggish. I mean, we all agree that it is sluggish even now.
Yeah.
And if somebody comes to you and they want to set up a business, what do you advise them as a mentor?
So the first thing I say is, why do you want to set up a business? What's the reason?
Can I ask you what your reason was?
My reason?
Yes.
My reason was I wanted autonomy, and I wanted to make money, and I wanted to do something. I was very passionate, and I wanted to create something for myself and for my family. So that's what I wanted to do. I was an entrepreneur, just going back a little bit, but I was always into business from a young age.
So you come from a family that's always been in business?
Not really. My dad was an accountant, auditor. He went into business at 35.
Okay.
But I grew up just working in my parents' businesses, And then I started just develop an entrepreneurial style. So I was working with my parents. I was started off as a dishwasher, then as a waiter. So I learned how to communicate, learn how to speak to people. Then I would start taking things to a different level, and I would buy and sell certain things. One of which was like sandwiches. So every Saturday there would be 150 kids from our school going to play rugby, right? And so it's 3 coaches, 50 children a coach, and I would make sandwiches. I would get up early in the morning. I'd ask my mum to help me a little bit. We'll make some sandwiches, and I'd make maybe 100, 150, 120 sandwiches. I would sell it for I think £1 at the time, and that was £120 almost every weekend I would be making. And then
how old were you?
I was probably 14 or something like that.
That's really enterprising.
And yeah, and then I would buy comic books. I would buy anything that I felt had a bit more value, and so I'd just buy and start selling it in school. And even the sandwiches, that started happening where on a daily basis people wanted sandwiches and stuff, so I would sell 20-25 sandwiches for school a day. And yeah, so those were just like certain small things. And then when I got to 16, when I was 16 years old, so we had this wonderful bar restaurant in North Wales with a big space, and there was a festival. And I was like, you know what? Everyone needs a good breakfast at the next day after a festival. And so I said, right, let's pull up let's get a breakfast thing going. And on our first day that I did it, 500 people showed up. We only had food for about 100. So we had to keep going out, getting more food, but it became an amazing scene to have 500 people just sort of there at the place. And so I've always had these kind of ideas, and just to try and do different things. I'm not scared to fail, and of course some things don't always work out, but just I enjoy doing that. And so that's really my why. Is like I think I'll keep going till I'm really old. And just as an example, I think it's in the blood as a why. My dad, he's 73 years old. Yesterday he just completed on a 10-bedroom rental house. So and he's still active, and he's still going. And and I wanted just to say, like, doesn't matter how old we can get, you can,
But is it a mindset? Some people have a mindset of being an employee,
yes,
and others are like you.
Maybe, yeah. I think so. I think it's just whether you are comfortable in also, I guess, not having much, and also. So, for example, mindset in the sense that it's security. If you're an employee, you're secure.
Financial security.
Financial security. One of the things my dad advised me on, I wanted to set up a business straight out of uni. I actually didn't even want to go to uni, right? And so he said to me, he goes, listen, just one favor I ask of you, just work in a company for 5 years. See if you like that. Because he wanted me to understand that as well. And said, work in a company for 5 years. If you want to stay on as an employee, do that. If you want to set up your own business, do that. But you should do that. And I think, it comes down to security. So the way I think I'm wired is that I'm willing to lose, and it's probably a horrible thing for my family to hear, but I'm willing to risk things in order to gain
That's
things.
my next question. Have you failed on any ventures? Or you don't seem to be afraid of failure.
No, I'm not afraid of it. I think maybe small little projects I'm trying to think of. I think I failed a lot more in businesses that I've owned and ran. So at certain points, there's been certain things which have been great learning points that I've failed on. I haven't, touch wood, failed on a business. And because I've always felt one can overcome that, one can just outwork it, and you should be okay. But of course, I mean, that's where we learn, right? It's just hiring the wrong people a lot of times. That's been one of my greatest, and I'm a recruiter by heart and by profession. So and I've failed on that a lot of times. It could be investing in the wrong
business also.
Yeah, in the wrong products. It could be even for business. So we could end up spending 20,000 dinars on the wrong type of product just because we think there was demand for it, and then we can't sell it at that price. So those kind of failures have happened, and that gives
supplier, customer who's not going to pay you.
That's
too much inventory.
Yes,
all that kind of
that's the challenges that almost every business has to face.
That's right.
But there is no business that you've started and had to close down because it did not work. That's
No.
touch wood,
Touch
never
wood,
happened.
no, that's never happened.
That's excellent.
I hope that never happens.
It won't. So, so do you think that? So you've been mentoring businesses here, right? I mean,
Yeah.
people who want to start businesses, and what is that? You would ask them why they want to start a business, right?
Yeah.
And then apart from that, what else do you ask them in that whole mentoring process?
So I asked them why they want to start the business. I want to understand what is their main reasons for it. And it could be anything, but sometimes it could be, they have a chip on their shoulder. I want to understand, and I go dive deep on that, because sometimes it doesn't matter about money. They're just going to go for it. And sometimes that, it could be retaliation. It could be anything. Sometimes they're the best in terms of what it is. If it's just to have to prove, or if they just say, I'm bored, I actually say, I don't know if I can help you. I want you to go read some books. I want you to really, because I don't want to help someone who's not really committed or invested in themselves into it. So it's also, other points are, do they have a unique selling point? I think a lot of times over here, a lot of people who I do speak to, they jump on the bandwagon. I'll open up a restaurant. I'll open up a consultancy.
Or a paddle tennis court.
It seems like the easiest thing to do, but it isn't easy to run a
isn't.
restaurant.
It's one of the hardest things to
Yes.
do. And I've had experience of that, and it is so tough. You see, it's what I look at is glory businesses. So a lot of people go into a glory. They want to start up a glory because it looks good to their friends. It looks good to their families. And that's not always the way to go.
Yeah.
Sometimes the most boring businesses make the most amount of money. Honestly, but it's just, people willing to do that? So I question the person. I said, would you be willing to sell toilet seats? If would you work 12 hours a day? Would you work 15 hours a day? And they say no. Then I know the work ethic where they're situated. So really, I qualify people before they want to set up a business, and we talk about the pitfalls. We talk about the good, of course, but also there are a lot more pitfalls in business than there are good. So are you willing to do that? Are you willing to sacrifice? That's what it comes down to. Is the person willing to sacrifice? Once I've ascertained if they are and they're all in, then we'll take things to another level, and then we can go a bit more into particular. But it's exactly bringing on, do you have the right mindset? If you've got the right mindset, that's always the base, the foundation, I say.
And I think from the story that you just shared with us about how you used to anticipate a need, right?
Yes.
You anticipated that people will need breakfast, and that's why you thought about it ahead of time and you filled that gap. That is what an entrepreneur does.
That's right.
They fulfill a
solutions to
unmet
problems.
demand, basically, and a solution to a problem. Yeah.
That's it. Just focus on that.
Is
and
it
you
find
business.
solutions to problems that some of us don't know exist in the first place?
Could be.
Yeah, because I think yours was Anita, wasn't it?
Yeah.
When you
What
were
was
looking at digital
yours?
Marketing all that
Yeah.
time ago.
I started the Butterfly Effect nearly 9 years ago.
Oh, wow.
And those days, and I come from a consulting background, so the idea was always trying to understand what is going on in the market.
Okay.
And I realized that there were traditional advertising companies and there were website development companies, but there were no digital marketing companies or even social media companies that
Right.
do content.
Okay.
So the traditional marketing companies and the website development companies were trying to do social and they were failing.
Okay.
And the customers were not happy because they were paying a lot. Today, it's more common, right? Social media is so
Yes.
common. But those days, people didn't understand the platform that well. And there was only Facebook, if you remember.
That's
There weren't
right, yeah.
many other platforms back then. So they didn't know how to run ads on Facebook. They didn't know how to write content for brands. So I came with Butterfly Effect and I kind of tried to plug that gap between the traditional advertising companies and the website development companies. And since then, we're trying to navigate through different phases.
Was it hard to get customers to understand where you were going through?
Definitely. I think I spent less time selling and more
Okay.
time educating.
Right.
That is that
great,
has
though.
that was what I was doing the entire time. I met people and trying to educate them on different platforms, why the reach was definitely going to be better than any traditional form of advertising. And it took time, and obviously many rejections, and they just didn't feel the need to be there. But eventually they all came on board because
That's
they had
amazing.
to, right?
Yes.
Who is not on social? Everybody's on social, except Ron.
Yeah, because I was always happy being an employee or just selling my time as a consultant.
Right.
I don't have that creativity.
No, I mean to say that everybody's on social, but Ron does not have a social media presence.
Oh no, I'm
Right.
not a social. Again, it's the same conversation we have on so many podcasts. A, I'm not really bothered about networking. B, I'm from a generation, probably not so far away from your father's age, that didn't have social media.
Yeah.
Yeah,
And we
true.
managed to live without it. I'm not really interested in looking at who had what
Yes.
for breakfast or dinner, or
Yeah.
Yeah, he
and
can't
I'm
be
not
bothered.
trying to market any product either.
No, that's fair enough. And I think, look, each to their own on that,
Yeah,
on
yeah.
social media. I admire people who have their own thing. I think I use social media, and what I also try and teach my kids is if you can learn from it, wow, you're going to be great. So a lot of accounts I look at as The Economist, Forbes. It's just, I'm just
A lot
curious.
of
I mean,
content, useful
I can
content.
show you on here what I have. Sorry about this, because we always get into this conversation. Financial Times,
Yes, yes, eToro.
eToro, The Guardian,
okay.
Yes, all those ads.
CNBC, investing.com.
Yes, all
Right.
of that.
There you go.
There you go.
But he's not on Facebook, he's not on Instagram, he's not on LinkedIn, which is something that I handle for both of us.
Anyway, this is not a podcast about me, is it?
No, it isn't. So, yeah. But, yeah, he comes from a time when person to person connection was something that was more of value, right?
Yes, and you know what? Something that probably social media has damages is the one-on-one interaction. The old days of conversing, of being able to
Or
sit in
building
front
a
of-
relationship.
building a relationship has gone. So that's where now, if you're able to have those skills, now you're again ahead of the game.
Yeah, it is true.
Because so you just got to keep pivoting. Of course, if you can, social media is where a lot of our business. I mean, our business was built on social media.
Yeah.
Maybe
To
that's
start with.
another podcast.
Which is?
The effects, good or bad, of social media.
I don't-
With me
Bad
arguing
effects.
against and you
I
arguing.
can't
for.
possibly talk about bad
You
effects.
you can't.
That'd be like sabotaging my own business.
Yeah. No,
No.
but for your business, you've literally had this butterfly effect where the companies have been able to explode with getting visibility.
Yes, and
Right.
hence the name. Yeah.
There you go. I'll be your ambassador.
Thank you. Do you want to ask the next question?
No, I'm finished. Thank
Oh,
you.
okay.
Thank you.
So you've been here for so many years, and you've literally seen the startup scene go from nothing to what it is today. What are your thoughts on it? Where do you think all of this is going?
So I think that we're going to see more and more startups, and I think we're going to see more and more failures, unfortunately, just because of the amount of businesses being set up. I think there's also a limited amount of people at the minute in Bahrain who are buying. I think the market in Dubai is a little bit different. They've got a bigger economy, but there are also a lot of visitors and a lot of people coming through Dubai. It's becoming a major destination, a major hub. So Bahrain is still going to play a bit of catch up in this regard. And Saudi Arabia is in a different league of its own because they've got huge money behind them, investments, and also the population. You know, there's a much bigger population. So I think the startup scene in Bahrain will still continue to grow. But I'm hoping it's going to be in where there's going to be more demand for certain products or services,
Yeah.
rather than just more run-of-the-mill, the same old.
Same
Just
thing.
finding that unique selling point. And I think one thing to take a little bit from recent history, the brand Lululemon. Have you heard of them?
Yes, the fashion brand?
Yes.
Yes.
Yep.
Yeah.
So a gentleman, Chip Wilson, when he created Lululemon, he had just one thing in mind. He wanted to sell athletic sportswear to women aged 32 who were doing well in a career and living in a condo. or had their own condo.
That niche.
That niche. That was his vision. He had a vision of just selling to that target audience, and he said, I'll do really well. I'll crack that market. And of course, a lot more people outside of that now buy. But that was his initial thing. So it's just being really, I think anyone can succeed if you just become a little bit more niche and go deep rather than so wide,
Shallow.
and shallow. Go narrow and deep. And you can even see that with the restaurants, for example, right? A restaurant will set up and they'll have every single dish on the menu that you can
Chinese,
imagine.
Indian,
right.
Arabic, all of it.
You could see it with department stores as well that
Yes.
are failing. Marks and Spencer's in London.
Yeah.
Oxford Street is full of shops.
That's
big
right.
Department stores that have closed.
And they're not providing anything different, right? So you can get that anywhere. Now then there's Amazon. So what are you doing in a business that is unique? So that's what I would say to anyone who's starting up a business. Really, spend your time figuring out what that is. And if you've got that bit right, then you've got something. You're onto something.
That's the takeaway from this pod then, a unique
is.
product.
I also would like to add that if you can make your business tech enabled in any way, then that would also help you with the reach.
100%. You need that.
Yes, because now after COVID, we've all learned our lessons that you can't do anything with your products sitting on the shelves if you don't have an online presence.
So, Anita, one of the main things I always advise any company, we do it ourselves as well, you have to increase sales in a down market. By that means prospecting, calling, getting in touch, having more appointments, having more meetings on. If you are able to do that, if you're then able to, in conjunction, start with the marketing and getting more onto social media, but not just advertising a product, really get into a community.
Yeah.
And that's how we built the Baby Essentials business. It was just going into the community, understanding what's going on in the minds of a mum and
mothers,
dad.
yeah.
And once you do that, then you start building. There's brand loyalty will come into place. Yeah, sure, it can take a bit of time, but that is the right long organic growth way to go, for a business. So it's just keeping in touch, get on the phone, speak with, I advise a lot of business owners, and they don't do it enough anymore. Get on the phone, just speak to your customer.
They prefer
Ask them how they
texting
are.
over calling.
Yeah, right. And you never know the real reason for why they're not buying from you. So I think we're also very, very engaged in going, right, we need to go get new business. But what about the business we've already got?
With you,
Why don't we increase that, give our customers a more enhanced experience, and they will spend more. So you don't actually have to go out and go fishing.
Yeah.
As I say, you can literally just work
Because
with
cost of acquiring new business is definitely more than maintaining and getting more revenue out of the existing one.
And a little one for maybe even for your business, if you were going to do, I've seen now the growth of TikTok as an example, right?
Yes.
But there's no one here, as far as I know, who are just specializing in TikTok. And so if there was an agency or a company that said, we only do TikTok, we don't do anything else, any company who's looking to do TikTok will most likely go
approach
with
you
them.
for definitely.
So just things like that in terms of having a unique selling point and trying to be niche.
Yes.
Don't be everything for everyone. It just doesn't work. And just because it becomes too flat, and then you can go narrow and deep, and that's when you're going to get your best results.
That's great advice. Thank you, Karan.
No, it's just
Yes, thank you. Maybe you can see us out.
Okay. So that is the end of our pod. Thank you so much, Karan.
Thank
It's
you.
very insightful, as I always knew that it would be, because speaking to you, I always learn something from you and from your experience. You can catch us on YouTube at MH Consultants, and you can also follow us on Instagram for more updates at MHConsultants_BH. Thank you so much for watching.
Thank you for joining us.
Thank you. Thank you so much, Ron. Thank you, Anita.
All right.
Cut.
All the videos.
Yeah.
All the videos.
He'll do cut.
Right, please.
Yes, please.